that's a great idea. Hi, my name is Rob Duvall and welcome to Halton Tech Today. We're here with Derek Lee and we're going to take a look at some creative studio work, and that's a little bit different. He's going to walk us through what it is that they're doing and how creative some of their projects are. So thanks, Derek, for having us here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So maybe you could explain to us a little bit about what it is that each one of your animators do and what type of projects actually that make you a little unique.
Well, we are a creative service studio, so what we actually do is we visualize in a creative way for clients, and for businesses and corporate and all different sectors. We mainly focus on like animation, pre-development stuff. Sometimes there's companies that would come up to us and be like, hey, can you develop like a design thing? This is the designs we want, and then can you put it together? And then sometimes it leads to bigger things, and sometimes it just it is what it is, right? So we do a lot of visualization, to say the least. We also do a lot of graphic designs, illustration, and web development too, but mostly on the visual end. And the main purpose of the studio is basically just to have an artist-friendly studio, but at the same time with a strong business background application to it. So we do a lot of things that tend to be very edgy. But that's only because the client's tired of like static things, right? We do a lot of promotional stuff that is just more like geared, that wouldn't normally be used for animation. So we do like pharmaceutical things, for example, like we do teeth renders, we do like models for screws and tweezers and stuff like that too, but that's all like prototype stuff that they would bring out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we do. Like, that's why we just say we're a creative studio.
Yeah, what seemed a little unique to me from what I've seen that your animators are doing is they're doing also a lot of smaller projects as well. Normally you think of them as these big, massive projects, and I think what makes you unique, because I have a business myself where I could actually use your services to get that, I guess, that extra multimedia feel out of it, instead of it just being a static thing, like just one flat image. So maybe you could walk us through and show us some of the things that you're doing. So that's great.
Okay, so this is Christine.
Hey, Christine.
Hi.
So what are you doing here?
Just redesigning Captain Canuck.
Captain Canuck. That's very patriotic.
So basically, this is an example of something that was brought up to us that they wanted to just explore for us, to just explore a new design. And pretty much this is what she's doing right now. She's taking an existing design and she's simplifying it to a specification that our clients has asked us to do. And then we're just playing around with different like positions and rotations kind of stuff. Why don't you tell them about what kind of stuff that's involved with the character design?
Sure.
Well, basically, I just go through character roughs. So we begin basically by analyzing the character, maybe doing like a study of it, and then just playing around with like different designs, different like proportions, heights, all that in the rough stage. And then once you have finalized the design, you go into line art and take that into here. And then through that we can just measure it all out and then basically just rotate it onto
Fantastic.
the paper,
Yeah, and there's a lot of real skill. I think a lot of people tend to think that just because it's digital, you know, it's done for you, and obviously that is not the situation.
Definitely.
You're literally hand drawing these right on the tablet. So there's a lot of real skill there. So how long have you been doing this?
Since I was a kid,
Yeah. It all started just with fun drawing, and here you are working in a really cool studio.
Totally,
is that it? Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And what other projects have you worked on that are kind of similar, like that are on a consistent basis?
Well, I guess I do a lot of designing work. So, like as Derek mentioned, the UOSC stuff. A lot of character designs for that. Also, designing helps with designing backgrounds and like assets for animation and stuff. So
Why don't you show them the jazz stuff, the design characters that you did for the jazz pitch that we did?
Yeah, totally.
And there's like a lot of like reference stuff that we tend to like try to look through. So there's a lot of research involved on it too. Like when we were pitching some stuff for the Oakville downtown, like we kind of went there, took a bunch of pictures, hung out at Fred Astaire, and then just took all the pictures of their dancing. I think we were like racking up like 2,000 pictures of different poses. And then we were just trying to get the right flow to it. And then Christine did the designs for it, and that's actually one of the designs right now.
Right.
So this is one of the designs that I did for the Jazz Festival. Just playing around with a bunch of textures and stuff.
Sure.
But basically it's the same thing, except with this one, she's measured in heads instead of just regular like proportions.
Right.
Yeah.
And what Derek was mentioning before, you took this character and live animated it from what looked like an actual picture of the downtown.
Well, yeah, like I mean that's the background stuff that we did. So like we took like a lot of character building references, like bricks, like brick layouts and stuff like that, textures, and then we're trying to apply it to it.
Fantastic.
There's. Can you show them your poses?
Poses.
Yeah, that's one.
These ones.
Right.
So, yeah, as you can see a lot of character exploration up here, playing with dresses, shapes, and like flow, rhythm.
Right. Wow,
Wow,
that's
that
very
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That's great. So I guess we'll move on to the next station. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
So what do we have here?
So this is Rich, and he animates and composites. He's kind of a jack of all trades. So why don't you do your thing?
Okay, yeah, so I'm just planning some rough animation. We have like a rough board stage, which here we'll just like kind of plan out the actions of what's going to be happening in the sequence.
Right.
And
your own stage?
so here we have somebody holding up like a beach ball, and we're going to have this girl jumping up, trying to go for it.
Oh,
so
okay.
we'll just plan it out in like a couple of frames, few boards, just to try to plot out like the main action. And then once we feel comfortable with where that's headed, we'll take that into animation, which will start planning out like the keyframes of the animation. So that's what we have here.
Right.
It's planning out the jump sequence of her jumping for that ball.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And once again, all hand drawn.
Yeah, everything, every frame is hand drawn, and once we feel comfortable with like a rough stage of animation, then we layer like shapes on top of it and do like the clean animation, which
Sure.
everything by hand.
That's amazing. You know, and you and I were talking before about the whole, paper issue when you were taking it at school. So what school did you go to first of all to take this?
So I currently attend Sheridan Animation, and it's a 4-year bachelor's program.
Right.
And you learn what you were mentioning to Christine before. There's like this misconception that kind of like digital stuff is kind of easier or whatever, and I was a part of that misconception. So once you get to school, you realize that all the digital stuff is just like tools to make strong artists even stronger.
Right.
So I've kind of like spent the last few years just breaking down my skill set and trying to really improve myself traditionally first, and then moving to a digital medium where it'll apply.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of work.
I guarantee you, a computer is not going to make me draw any better.
It might help.
It might help.
It might help a little bit.
But certainly, I know my limitations there. Well, that's really interesting. So now, some of the other things that you're doing, it looks like you have static things behind like logos and things like that. So you're kind of overlaying.
Yeah. So we'll plan everything out on the board stage, which I kind of like position the logo here, and that's kind of like an asset we've already had in the past, where I can just bring this in, pretty much drop it in. I lower the opacity so it's not really in the way when I'm doing everything else. Right. But then when I get into it and in the final composition, like they'll actually be animated and stuff. So,
fantastic.
Just show
I mean, there's still the traditional like drawing style that's involved in it. It's just now we're just doing it on a digital screen.
Right.
I mean, when we were doing this in the first year, we had 4 minutes of video. We actually ended up scanning 2,000 pages manually into a scanner.
That's amazing.
And it was just like, and the minute the client goes, "Hey, I want to change something," it's like, crap. Like, then you have to go back and sort through those pages, and then it just be like, oh, I have to pick up that 4 drawings that we have to take out, and then it was a mess. But now it's just so much easier.
Yeah, you can kind of send them the concept a little bit beforehand, make sure that they sign off on it.
It's a lot quicker too. Like it won't take us like 2-3 weeks to send them hard copies. Now we can just send them like remotely. If they ask to see where we're at right now, we can just give them a screenshot, like this is where we're at right now, or even just use our phone, take a picture, and then send it to them.
Right, right. Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah, because I just saw the static logo there before, but you actually have something now going on there. That's
right, yeah, so
fantastic.
this is something we've already built before previously, and we dropped them into all our logo animations. And yeah, so while I'm animating and stuff, I kind of just lock it on one frame, keep it out of the way, so it's not, there's not all these other elements kind of competing for attention while I'm just trying to focus on one thing.
Right. For a small thing like, well, this could be a much larger project, so I'm just saying this small thing. How long would it take to get just 30 seconds of animation done? What type of work is involved?
It really depends on what the need is, right? Like for something like this is a white background, assets already developed, characters already designed, so it's a lot less time. It's still time consuming. Like this is probably going to take Rich maybe 3 to 4 days to finish, right? But it's just like if you ask for like say 30 seconds, we have to do the development and the storyboards and all that stuff. It could very well take from a month to 2 months, right?
Right.
Then there's also the thing that you have to keep in mind is we have to send it off to the client. They may not respond in time. It might take a couple of days to come back and stuff like that too. So that kind of is always swaying in the background.
Right, right. Very interesting. Well, thanks very much for showing us that. That's wonderful. So what gave you the idea to become an entrepreneur like this? Because this is not for everybody. I mean, you know, it's one thing to work for someone, but it's another thing to start your own company and grow it into, you know, this great team that you have here. Although small, very effective.
Right.
So
I mean, the main thing is like what Ken was saying. Like one of the stuff I've noticed even when I was working in the Toronto studios, it's like the artists work on the stuff, but they never get recognized for it. So I didn't think that was probably a proper way to do it in terms of the business end of it. Like what we do, like even with our concept stuff in our pitch package, is like we tend to have them sign it. Like I've always told them, even for the interns that come in, it's like your artist first and your student second. Like I don't care if you're interns. Like I don't care what year you're in.
right.
I mean, and that's the kind of like the equality that I want to set. Like we go through our budgets and our financials transparently with our artists. We tell them exactly how much it is, and then that's the way we're going to go. So that's kind of one of the few ways that we kind of get rid of any unnecessary disputes, because everyone is there, like when they're talking about it. And that in mind, like because we do that kind of thing too, so it's a well balanced. It kind of provides a kind of like positive like environment to a certain extent. Like sure, for once in a while we get a little bit like morale's a little low on certain projects because, you know, something doesn't go through after we put a lot of work into it, but it's just like that's also the nature of it. But it's just a common understanding is kind of what I want to do with this studio. It's a common understanding between a business owner and the artist, and someone that, like for me, like I went through the same program as they do. I know exactly how things are going to take. So if they told me, like for example, if I didn't have my animation background from Sheridan, and then they asked me, hey, you know, like how long is it going to take to do a concept painting? And then they said it take 4 hours. I may not understand that, and I'd just be like, why is it 4 hours? It should only take you like a couple of minutes, like, and that would be funny, laughable.
Right. But at least your team is going to tell you. What I kind of like about your concept is they have a piece of the pie as well, which makes them understand that there's a value to what they're doing, but also to get the project done. Because quite often you go to a lot of these really big animation places, and their guys are gone after the project's done.
Well,
they literally fire them.
It is unfortunate. 6 months is actually usually the rough
really? 6 months?
The turnovers for it, right? If you're lucky, you go for 1 year, 2 years, and then they have like that little like climb, and then after a while it gets stagnant for a bit. But that's kind of what something that I didn't quite agree with. It's like, yes, they are great studios, right? And they do like feature film and all that stuff, and they have big budget stuff. But what happens when, let's say, the economy affects and then it brings down the projects? So it's always constantly growing, and that's the kind of thing that we want to do. We want freedom to be able to do whatever we want to do, but also at the same time be able to make a living out of it.
Right. Wow, that's fantastic. Well, Derek, thanks very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great seeing you, and thanks everyone for showing us all the great things you're doing here.
Yep.